Conversations with Agents of Change, the podcast where we meet people turning ideas into impact and explore what it really means to create meaningful change in the world. Today, I'm joined by someone who understands that change doesn't happen simply because good ideas exist. Change happens when those ideas are communicated clearly, credibly, and courageously. Sara McCracken is a PR and communication specialist, a chartered PR professional, fellow of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, MBA, founder of the PR Club, creator of the Press Framework, and a communicators leader with more than 20 years of experience. Her work spans PR training, media engagement, crisis communications, public affairs, advocacy, environmental campaigns, and mentoring. She has worked with organizations including MenCap, the National Trust, Woodland Trust, Samaritans, PIPS, Theatre and Dance and I, and the Climate Coalition. She's also playing a significant role in environmental leadership as an interim chair and deputy chair of the Council for Nature Conservation and the Countryside, and as a member of the Joint Nature Conservation Committee. But what makes Sarah an agent of change is not her impressive CV. It's the way she helps others find their voice, tell their stories, and step into visibility, especially those who might otherwise feel that media, influence, and public attention belong to someone else. Sarah, welcome to Conversations with Agents of Change.
Thank you so much for having me, Izzy. This is just going to be such a brilliant conversation.
Absolutely, I am so sure about it. So I'd love to begin with you as a person before we get into the PR and campaigns and public visibility. How do you describe yourself?
Oh my goodness. I do live in a bit of organized chaos, and people say, "Oh, you're really busy. I see your social posts," but that's only what you can see, what I choose to put on. So behind the scenes, I have two lovely girls, lovely husband. We live out in the countryside with a whole menagerie of people, but yeah, we're all busy, we're all working, we're all just trying to do our best, one step at a time, whether it's as a mum, whether it's in my role as a PR consultant, or whether it's affecting change for the environment. We're just all working together.
I love that because I love how you help people communicate with clarity and with credibility and confidence. And I think that is really tricky nowadays. Uh, was there a moment in your life or in your career when you realized that communication wasn't a professional skill, but a way to create change?
Absolutely. I didn't start out to do PR in my career. I actually have a degree in zoology and genetics. I researched sheep, and I eventually came back to Northern Ireland to start to work. And I got into PR and public affairs, and I absolutely loved it. So, from a public affairs perspective, that's your advocacy and lobbying. I learned really early on that good communications, good PR can make change.
Yeah.
If you remember back in the day, 2006, there was the smoke-free Northern Ireland legislation was brought in. So I was part of that campaign. I worked for Chest, Heart and Stroke at the time. And that's when I kind of realised, actually, we can make change in the world, and good communications is absolutely fundamental to that.
Absolutely. And it is so relevant. You have spent more than 20 years across PR and campaigns and mentoring and strategic communication. So that's fantastic. When you look back, what brought you to managing reputation and the messaging?
Yeah, I always say that PR found me. So I got into it. I had a really good mentor in one of the places I work with, and just I loved working with people to hear their story
Yeah.
and then work out a way to tell that. And again, when you're doing communications, it's not PR and comms for PR's sake.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what is the business or organization trying to achieve. So when I worked for a medical organization, we were looking at policy, we were looking at advocacy in like mental health, young carers, organ donation. And I worked with a lot of third sector organizations, a lot of different people impacted by these various issues. And I was able to sit down and understand their story and then tell that in the public domain, which carries so much more weight when you are trying to change. I can go in and say, well, so and so wants this to happen. But if somebody's actually telling their story about how this will impact their life, that is so much more powerful.
Absolutely. And now that when you say that, I think there's a huge relationship between your voice and the power and the visibility. So what do you think about that? What's the relationship between those things?
I think fundamental is having the confidence to use your voice. So I do a lot of work with small business owners, business leaders, and what I hear is, oh, I couldn't say that, or I don't want to be showing off. What if somebody, I call them what if. So what if somebody thinks I'm stupid? What if nobody listens to me? What if I make a mistake? And I don't know if it's a Northern Irish thing. I don't know if it's a female thing, but it's very much, oh, I don't want to toot my own horn. Well, quite frankly, go on and toot your horns. You've got to have that confidence to put yourself forward. And it's a skill to be learnt. Like, there's no magic here at all. And then we reframe those what ifs. So what if somebody hears what I say and needs to hear that? What if somebody hears what I'm saying and I can make a small change? What if my client hears me and I can then work with them to create the change that we need to make? So again, it's just having that confidence that you can speak up and you can use your voice. I know it's easier said than done a lot of the time.
Yes.
This is why I do the mentoring and coaching them as well, just to help people do that. And we're not talking about going straight from nothing to Newsnight or some major TV show. We can do that. If that's what you want to do, I can certainly help you with that. But we're talking maybe about doing a 20-second reel on Instagram or a LinkedIn post or a short press release to go out to the local media. So it's all those little small steps and they all add up. And then that's what compounds the change that we need to see.
Which I love that because you're somehow saying that PR is not only for large organizations with big projects. It's pretty much for everyone that needs to say a message. And through the PR club and your press program, you help small business owners and entrepreneurs and leaders planning their PR and to reach their audience and engage with people and tell their stories and to shine, which I love. So can you tell us about where the press framework came from?
Yes, I want to work with as many people as possible because, like you said, PR is for everybody. So PR is about your reputation. It's what you're putting out into the public domain. And I don't mean spin. If you're dodgy, you will get found out. So again, it's about being ethical and credible and being really clear in your values. So press stands for plan. I'm a real planner. You got to plan your PR. So plan, reach, engage, tell your story and shine. So it's how to plan your PR, reach your audience, how to engage with your audience. Then the storytelling is the bit I love. It's understanding what we're going to say. So it's not just, I'm going to stick out a press release. It's really getting into the detail of who's your audience, where do you want to meet them, where do they listen to their news, what are they reading, what are they scrolling, and then getting your message in front of them. And then shining is just all the fun stuff, all the tactics of really just, using your voice then to create that change. So it came about just as a way to kind of frame everything that I've learned over the last, it's probably near 25 years, to be honest, in a way that people would understand. And it's like a sequence then that I take business owners through. So press is my online community. We meet every week. We have training. We have feedback. I give my best advice. We have guest speakers come in. But again, there's a lot on the platform as well to help people really write their own PR plan and take it from there. And I think there's a real need for that because small businesses, they don't have these mega budgets. There's a lot out there in the ether, if you like, about marketing and AI and do this, and your AI tool is going to write everything for you and do it all for you. But again, it's understanding the fundamentals. It's understanding that PR will take you outside your social media bubble, and it's just how to make sure that your reputation is what it should be. So whether it's an e-newsletter, whether it's a podcast appearance, a press release, a pitch, wherever you're communicating, these little credibility markers, they all add up to people's perception of you. So press, it's my framework just to help people work through all that and really just simplify what PR is and how it can work for them.
And I love that idea because it's helping people who probably never thought of themselves as being media ready.
Yeah.
And it just changes the way they communicate with confidence after going through press and getting to understand, as you said, the basics and see that there's tools out there. So I really find it very empowering. Do you think that PR has been like a gatekeep, so that it's been gatekept for too long?
I think it is a skill to be learned. Like I said, my background is zoology and genetics. I learned how to do PR through my work. And since then, like you said, I'm chartered PR, I'm a fellow, I've got my PR diploma. And so I went and put a lot of effort into learning how to do it properly. But
Yes.
I think it should be accessible to everybody, which is why I offer tea and chats with people. If they've got any questions, I run free webinars. And it's really just trying to demystify what PR is. And it's
That's
back
the
to that.
key.
Absolutely. I mean, I did a presentation for ABC Business Networking on press releases the other week, and one of the bits of feedback from one of the guests was I'd never thought of doing PR because they're a one-person enterprise and they didn't know it was for them, but it absolutely is. And the benefit, the absolute joy of working with small business owners is that they can make decisions really quickly. They can decide today that they're going to tell a story next week without having to go through multi-layers that you would find in any big organization. So PR is for everybody. You don't need a big budget, but you do need sort of time, space, and an understanding of how it works, which is where I come in to help people with that.
I really like that because myself, I've been noticing that how much work needs to be planning things. I'm about to launch a book in hopefully this autumn, but I was planning to do all these and that. I was like, hold on, there's a lot of things that need to go before that I hadn't thought about it. So when you were saying about this planning and thinking where you're going, it's that clarity that helps you pass a message through and clearly. So yes, there's a lot of work to put on before you launch or before you send a message. So I think it's very important to give that stage the importance that it requires. So the planning, the understanding what and who for, who's your audience and what's the message and all that. So I think it's very, very important because most people would have had this idea, oh, I just put up a post on Facebook. So it might not even be where their audience is going to be. So it's pretty much going to be a waste of time and energy and resources if you don't do your research before that. So I think it's very important to do all the stages before, all the lifting before that. And I've noticed that you talk often about helping people to get seen, especially trusted, not just seen and heard, but trusted. So I really feel that is very important right now because people feel a bit overwhelmed with misinformation and all the noise. So there's so much noise everywhere and everybody's telling about so many things and stories. So what do you think trust means today in communications?
Trust is fundamental. People buy from people at the end of the day. We met a long time ago through networking. So you might meet someone and then not speak to them for 6 months, 6 years, whatever. You've
Yeah.
started building up that trust. And the thing about PR is if you're doing it strategically with your plan, which is so important, all your messaging, what you're saying will be consistent. So people aren't saying different versions of you. And the more people see you, the more they hear you, the more they will know, like, and trust you. So it's absolutely fundamental, especially when there's so much concern over AI videos or AI posts. You can't just beat having a conversation with somebody, whether it's online, whether it's out networking, and just really getting to know them that way. And people are so generous. I find that I've been out working for myself now for a year and a half, and people are so generous in referrals, but that has been built up over a very, very long time through my whole career. So again, that's a trust thing. I let people know if they refer me, what they're going to get. And equally, when I start to meet with clients, we always start with a tea and chat and then we move into the planning phase. But again, it's building up that trust and that relationship. But yeah, in terms of meeting your clients or trying to get more business or raising your profile through PR, yeah, it's just using all those opportunities then to keep that trust high.
I absolutely agree with that because it's not just about getting coverage, it's more about the rapport that you're going to build with other people and that they are going to not just be like a message, that's it. Is a relationship that you can build with other people that eventually can become long lasting business associations or friendships. You never know. So I think it's very relevant. And I wanted to ask you, what does good PR look like when it's done with integrity?
Yeah, good PR is about ethical credibility. So as a member of CIPR, I'm signed up to their code of conduct about their ethics. And there's organizations that I won't work with. They would be not aligned to my values. But again, everybody can do PR. It's not restricted to one business. But done well, it's about telling the story, which is why I love I'm working with the Climate Coalition at the minute. It's Great Big Green Week. It's running from the 6th to 14th of June. It happens every year. But again, that's very aligned to my values and we're doing it ethically. We're working with local community organisers to tell their stories. We are not working with businesses that aren't aligned to our values, which is very, very important. And we're just making sure that what we're doing is the right thing to do, which I think is really, really important. So again, it's back to telling the story of ordinary everyday people who are taking small actions for nature and climate and just making sure that then is in the public domain. And again, that all then starts that up. And we were expecting 2 million people to take part this year. I mean,
Wow.
it's huge. That's built up year on year on year. And it's just that trust, that credibility. They now know that this is a major event and they know that they're going to increase their profiles as well and get more people, you say volunteering or swapping seeds or recycling clothes, whatever it happens to be as part of their events. So yeah, really
Sounds
important to
really
be
exciting because
ethical
it's the
and credible.
communication. It's a force for good, which I love. I mean, it sounds so big and complex as climate. So how would you manage that?
I do exactly what I coach my clients to do. I follow my framework. We have a plan. We know who our audience is. There's a lot of work done on that. We know what we want to say to our target audience, and then we get into the tactics. But that plan was drawn up quite early on, and that's what we base everything on. And the other thing about having a plan is it keeps you on the rails.
Yeah.
So rather than you getting sidetracked into something else, you just keep no back to that. These are my KPIs. This is what I'm trying to achieve this quarter, and then you just keep that back on track. But yeah, I do exactly what I tell other people to do. I do the plan, know who I want to reach, know what the story is, and then I work on how I'm going to do that.
So sounds like we all have to do that course and you understand that framework to start with. And I was just thinking here, like, how do you move the climate conversation beyond the usual audiences and say to the mainstream culture? Because I think that there's a lot of reluctancy still in terms of whichever topic it is related to climate. It's like, oh, I don't want to hear about it. How you move past those challenges?
It's really about meeting people where they're at. So in terms of any audiences, it's where are they? What are they reading? What are they scrolling? What platforms are they on? And it's taking that conscious decision and saying, I mean, social media is very, very important. It needs to be integrated into your PR because it's all reputation. But again, it's looking at what publications, for example, could we get into that you wouldn't expect to see a climate story in. So last year in 2025, we had coverage in Horse and Hound, Women's Weekly, and Waitrose magazine, which again you wouldn't expect it to be in. This year we have coverage in Prima magazine, uh, National Geographic Junior, and the Week Junior Science and Nature. Again, different publications to what you would normally expect to see this messaging in. So we're not relying on, we're not at the whim of the social media algorithm. We're telling the story. We're engaging with journalists. We're pitching stories into them. And we did a podcast strategy as well. So reaching out to different podcast hosts to put the spokesperson into those, and you're reaching a different audience.
That's amazing. I love that because it's precisely what we need to find those hidden sweet spots that you wouldn't think straight away, oh, I need to be there. So it's being creative and resourceful and, finding the right moment and place to position yourself. So that's really good,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to climate. So it's very interesting because I would like to think that or having a climate story, how would it land with people who might not be ready to see themselves as activists? Do you still see that reluctancy or is it just me?
There's different types of people doing different things. You have people who want to be activists, they want to go on a march, they want to be more hands-on, but then you have people like me who we're doing the recycling, we're trying to buy secondhand, we're trying to cut down on our car use, and it's all those little things that are as important. So if you have a million people doing small things imperfectly, that all helps. And again, it's about that visibility of demonstrating to our politicians that, look, this is what your constituents are doing. This is big. We now want to engage with you. We want you to make systemic changes. And then we can see the change start to happen that way. I do love a bit of campaigning now. In a previous role, my team led the campaign for climate change legislation in Northern Ireland, so I was really proud of that. And there's a whole mix of tactics in there. There was the media coverage, there was the direct engagement with politicians, there was the policy side, but it's having that plan to really focus on the end goal and get the change that we need.
Absolutely. This is probably a slightly out of topic, but how do you manage to balance urgency with hope?
That's a really good question. But again, it's breaking it all down. If you have this big, huge, scary message, that people will switch off. They're just going to get completely overwhelmed. So how do you break that down into something that your target audience absolutely understand? That's why you need to understand your audience,
Yeah.
how to speak to them. Where are they? Are they grandparents? Are they parents? Are they single parents? It's getting right down into that detail and really understanding how to speak with them and how to listen to them, and then creating your messaging around that and then meeting them where they're at.
Absolutely. I think it's very important. So I wanted to move to a different thing. It's more a bit about the nature and the policy and the public responsibility. So alongside your communications work, you've also held public roles connected to nature and environmental decision making, including your work with the Council for Nature Conservation and the Countryside and the JNCC. That places you at a very interesting intersection between science, policy, public interest, and communications. So What has that, like being involved in that, they have taught you about how the decisions are made?
Yes, so those organizations are very much based in science, particularly JNCC, and it's just what I find is that it's back to that hope. It's so hopeful for me
Yeah.
to understand that there's all this work going on behind the scenes that you're not necessarily going to hear about. I mean, the general public is not an audience, but that's not necessarily who needs to hear about this work. But there's
Yeah.
all this work going on behind the scenes to make our environment better, and that is just absolutely brilliant. I love that. So you can be confident that work is being done, peatlands are being restored. Work is ongoing to try and look after our birds, for example, and it's all happening. So you don't need to be a climate activist or a nature lover for any of this to be happening. You just have
Care.
to know that when you go outside the front door, it's a nice environment to be into. You'll hear the birds because somebody is working to protect them. So it's just lovely to hear what's going on and know that there's work being done.
And that just shows you how communication matters so much to develop environmental policies. So it is the way that we perceive things, and we can share and pass the voice and the message. It's really relevant. How do you help people understand that nature protection is not separate from everyday life, communities, health, economy, and the future generations?
Oh, it's so important. I mean, even if you're thinking of getting out into nature and your mental well-being, there's evidence out there to show that the two go hand in hand. I mean, I've a pond. I'm quite obsessed with it. I'm not gonna
Love it.
lie. So in between meetings, you will literally find me standing outside trying to spot the newts in my pond. If that doesn't do anything for your mental health, I don't know what will. So it's getting access to parks, to that piece of ground, that community garden is so important. And it's those little pockets then of green spaces that really help. And then you can start to get into more detail then about the role of trees in cities, for example. They help with cooling, the role of pollinator plants, having pockets of those. I mean, DIA actually has a really good sporting nature program trying to develop their clubs, their grounds to be more pollinator friendly. So it's happening everywhere, and we see a lot more businesses getting involved in that as well.
And there's very important to see big changes being done, but at the same time, it's equally relevant to know that there's a bunch of smaller activities happening around, and that there's so many initiatives here and there. So I love to hear those stories slightly more than the big ones, because I think those are more impactful. To me, those have a bigger ripple effect with people and consciousness, and how people are behaving and how are they choosing to consume in most situations. So I'm very enthusiastic about that. But another part of your work is crisis communications and reputation management. And I think that is crucial. In moments of crisis, communication can help to build trust or to destroy it very quickly. So, what do you think organizations need to understand when they are communicating under pressure?
You're probably going to know I'm going to say this, but they need a plan.
Oh,
And
okay.
you'd be surprised how many large organizations don't necessarily have a crisis communications plan.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that then is sitting down and really thinking, what would happen now if something happens? So a crisis is something sudden, so fire, explosion, a crash, something fairly catastrophic. A lot of that can be managed operationally, so you're going to have all your health and safety bits and pieces. But when it comes to it, it's the comms team that's really, they're going to be in the front line. They're going to get the calls from the journalists and have to coordinate, and they're going to have to brief. You've also got reputational impact as well. So that is nothing physical happening. That's potentially your CEO, or maybe you've a celebrity ambassador, and something happens in the media usually, and your reputation then is associated with that. The principles are still the same then in terms of trying to manage the fallout. And then you have incidences which are more low key but happen a lot more regularly. So you're just trying to manage all that so they don't escalate. But you need a plan. So you need to understand, what are the potential implications for my business. So I love scenario planning. So I'd be encouraging people to sit down and, what keeps you awake at night in terms of your business? What if this happened? What if that happened? What if, and then when you map all that out, you can start to put in the mitigations. So it could be, so what if we had a cyber attack? Well, we update our software. We have a tech team. They're doing all this. So you have the mitigations, and then it's, well, what would happen if the systems went down? How would we communicate? Who's got the old mobile phone that isn't as fancy and won't be? It's putting all that in place. So when it does happen, then you're ready to go. Now, your reputation will take a hit in any crisis, but again, it's trying to get through it with lesser damage, if you like, and
Absolutely.
then having a platform to rebuild on the other side. But yeah, planning is everything. And then knowing as well in the first like hour of a crisis hitting, who are you going to call? Who's your crisis comms team? How are you going to assemble them? Is the chief executive off on holiday? Can they get back? You see a lot of things in the media about the chief executive is doing some statement from some tropical island when they should maybe be back at their desk helping manage the fallout or something. But yeah, have a plan, work it all out, get it on paper, and then you're ready to go.
That makes so much sense because then when you're hit by that, you can stay calm and you can communicate clearly and like especially when stakes are that high. So I love it. I honestly hadn't thought about that. That it makes so much sense. I love it.
And the things when it is planned like that, like I have a plan for client at the minute, and like the statements are all drafted for different scenarios. So when it does happen, you're not starting from scratch every time when you're
Yes.
in a bit of a panic. And you when a crisis happens, people are at the heart of it. So you want to do your best for them as well. So you've got to act quickly. You've got to know who you're going to talk to. You've got to know again what your media outlets are going to be, what social platforms are you going to use, and you need to be recording things as you go along as well. So that is all. Here's what I made earlier. It's all there ready to go. Shoot anything happen.
That's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. And that is just planning for success. So you have also been recognized as CO3 Mentor of the Year, and mentoring seems to be a really important thread for your work. What does good mentoring mean to you?
I want to give back. You know, I love doing PR, and it's back to that gatekeeping thing. I don't want to gatekeep anything. If somebody needs help, whether it is a business leader who needs that confidence, maybe to speak in the media, or maybe it's somebody starting out in comms, or maybe it's somebody more senior, but they maybe need a sounding board or some advice, then that's what I just love doing. And again, it's having those conversations, understanding their story. Why are they doing this job? Where do they want to go next? What are their plans within their current role for their
Yeah.
PR? It's just, I just love it. And if I can help people get the confidence to do something a bit different or do something better, and I have all the tools, they're welcome to them all. It just, I just love it. It's great. Love seeing people succeed, I think, is the thing.
And I think that love and passion that you put into it, it just sees through. And I wanted to ask, why do you think it's important to build capability and not dependency? Because it would be easier just to keep you on hold, but you're trying to build that capabilities that you can do this. You just need to learn the basics, I suppose. And yes, I'm a hold here if you need something extraordinary, but you're showing and you're mentoring and building that skills and confidence to do so. So why is it important?
Well, like I said, a lot of it is confidence. When you're working in a small organization as a communications lead, you're often there on your own, and that is difficult. So it's about that networking. It's about that support. It's like you need to have that trusted confidant to say, like, is this right? Is it just me? Am I going mad? We have all those conversations. He's like, no, 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 that's not right. No, you're not going mad. Here's something you might want to try. So that's really important as well. Also, people don't feel as maybe isolated. There's other people like me. Even in bigger teams, I find with teams in organizations, you get quite institutionalized, very inwardly focused. So it's trying to help people look outwards as well. The good practice elsewhere is really, really important. But yeah, for me, it's all about supporting each other, giving people confidence, and just making sure that we all succeed. There's enough work for all of us.
That's lovely. And this is something I really love about Northern Ireland. I mean, I'm sure it happens elsewhere, but because I live here, that's what I can see, that there's this sense of community and it's very helpful. And if you don't know the answer, you might know someone who does. I love that. And it just makes me feel very welcome. You also support people with public speaking and storytelling and preparing for the stage, which I'll be very, very soon asking you for that help because with the release of that book. So I love that. But for many people, being visible can feel very vulnerable. Speaking in public or putting yourself in front of a bunch of people and telling a story, it just can trigger fear and the imposter syndrome will just be on top of you. And you feel this worry about being judged. So, what would you say to someone who's in that situation and that they have something important to say, but they are just maybe afraid to be seen? What would you say to them?
That's back to your what ifs. What if I fall over? What if I forget my words? What if, and we all do it. But what if somebody needs to hear what you have to say? And again, it's a skill to be learnt. There's no magic science behind this. Many years ago, I did a public speaking course. I've never felt so sick in my entire life, but it was the best thing I ever did because I knew I was going to have to get up and talk. So you may as well get up and talk in a room full of 6 people and get some coaching than you do your first presentation in front of people like trustees or the board or whoever it happens to be. So again, it's about preparing. So we need to prepare. We need to understand who's the audience. What are you trying to say? What is the best way to say it? And then we need to practice.
Yeah.
And even before I would do a presentation, like I'm practicing with the dog, talking it through, because again, you have stuff written down and it's all lovely written down, but it's not actually what you would say when you get up to speak it. So again, it's literally standing on your own in a room and speaking it out loud, and then you go back and you do your edits. But it's really, preparation is everything, and practicing. And once we start to do that, then I'm not saying the nerves will go, but it's a reframe to excitement.
Yeah.
You have this absolutely fabulous opportunity. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to cough. Will you take a drink of water? Or you're going to have to take a deep breath. But the audience will be on your side because they'll be thinking, well, I'm glad it's not me up there. Look how cool Izy is getting up and telling us about her new book. So it's just that preparation and practice and know what's the worst that's going to happen.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, when you have that preparation and you're able to kind of calm those nerves and you feel a bit more confident because you have practiced. So, what would make a story very powerful on stage and in the media or in the campaign? So, what's that punch that makes it very powerful?
It's about making it person-centered. So if you're a charity working with, I don't know, vulnerable young people, what is the impact you have on them? Can the young person tell their story about how your services have helped them, get a job, get through school, whatever it happens to be? If you're an author, is it a business book? How will your book help people? So again, it's just telling, or even as a small business owner, why did you start your business? I mean, that's just brilliant. So again, it's just sitting and understanding what story is you want to tell. There's all the techniques you can use then to actually tell the story. I love the Pixar fairy tale technique. It's brilliant. So there's all, but it's understanding what's the heart of it, which is going to be people, the transformation, the change that you're making, how you've overcome any adversity or how your clients have, and what is the outcome from that then. And then we can start to frame that. And then whether it's a TED talk or maybe it's a media interview or maybe it's a 30-second story on Instagram, we can then start to tell that story.
Love it because it just covers like a whole range of different presences and different stories. So it's very
But I
powerful.
think this as well, it's understanding what's at the heart of it. So the platform's the platform. It doesn't matter what the platform is. It's the same story. We're just adapting. It's like your PR plan, and you have your plans. You're not just sending out press releases. So it's just getting down into the detail of it. What is it you want to say? And then the how you're going to say it will come after that. And it gets easier with time. I absolutely promise you. The more you tell your story, or the more you do media, or the more you do your social media, it does get easier.
That's brilliant. That just fills me with hope. So, in this podcast, we always talk about what it means to be an agent of change. So, what stands out about your work is what you do. You don't speak on behalf of people, you help them to speak for themselves. And to me, that's really important because it somehow kind of, I don't know how to say this, democratize PR. I think it just makes it more accessible to everybody. I love that. And you help people to tell better stories. You bring the visibility to the climate action, which I love it, and to nature. And you operate in spaces that influence really carry some weight, really responsibility. And I would love to ask you directly, being an agent of change, what does it mean to you?
I want to make a difference. So whether it's really small, whether it's my pond helping the newts, quite obsessed, or whether it's helping you tell your story, or whether it's helping a charity get in through the doors at Stormont, or whether it's getting media reach of 64 million for the Climate Coalition, it's all the same. It's all making change. That's what I want to do. Those are my values. I'm very, very privileged that I am able to do that through PR, through storytelling, through supporting people and helping them succeed, because that's what it's all about. We need to work together.
Absolutely, 100% agree there. I think that realization that there are so many types and lenses and depths of change is so important, so relevant, and we all can do so many at the same time in different layers of our lives. So it's very, very interesting. And as we come towards the end, I love to ask you three reflective questions. So the first one would be, what is the one story you wish more people were brave enough to tell?
That's interesting. And I think it comes back to a lack of confidence, but to tell your own story. Why are you in business? Why are you working for the organizations you work for? Why do you love that tree? Why do you love doing what you do? And again, we're not talking about going on to BBC Question Time here. Is it telling a parent at the school gate? Is it through your socials? Is it getting that pitch together for the media? So it doesn't have to be huge. It's just, telling your own story.
Okay, so the next one would be, what's one communication habit every leader or change maker should develop?
I don't know if it's a habit, but it's the knowledge and understanding that communication is fundamental to everything. If you're putting out a statement on job closures, how you do that's really important. If you're putting out a statement on investment, how you say that's really important. If you're communicating with your local community groups to do an event, that's really important. But I think communications is absolutely fundamental, and I think it should be prioritized.
Absolutely agree. And the last one is, what's one thing listeners can do this week to become more visible for their work, their cause, or the message they care about?
I would start with the what ifs and what's holding you back, and then reframe those into, what if I did this Instagram story today and just try it and see? Or what if I did this LinkedIn post just to talk about something I did this week? Just try it and see. And I see a lot of people really overwhelmed at the thought of having to do that, but just keep it really small and do it once, and then do it once more, and then do it once more, and then it just starts to accumulate. So again, it's back to that. Just have the confidence in yourself that you have a story to tell, you have a right to be heard, and you're going to tell your story.
I love it. It's so powerful. And you know what, Sarah, thank you so much for this conversation, because I feel more empowered. I feel that I can do this, which at the beginning I thought, you know what, I don't know if I can. I mean, I am a teacher, so I'm used to be in front of children, but that's so different. So the fact that you say it's a skill, you have to plan, you have to prepare, it just puts a different lens on that. So it's not fear anymore. It's like, right, okay, so this is what I need to do, and I need to prepare. And it just kind of, it doesn't remove the fear altogether, but it gives me that sense of, I can do this. And what I'm taking from today is that communication is not just about attention, it's about the access, it's about trust, it's about helping the right stories reach the right places and the right people at the right time. So I am very, very enthusiastic about this. And when we do that well, I think PR becomes much more than promotion. It becomes a tool for confidence and for connection and for advocacy and change. So thank you so much for the work you do and helping people and organizations to get seen and heard and trusted, and for showing us that the visibility, when it's used with integrity, can become a real force for good. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Agents of Change. If this conversation resonated with you and you think differently about your own voice, your own story, or the change you want to create, share this with someone who needs a little encouragement to step into visibility. Until next time, keep noticing the change around you and the change you're capable of creating. This podcast is produced by the Change Impact Group.